Hey, it's the Flying Fiddler. I want to invite you to come along with me for the next 20 minutes. We're going to go to Milan on this A330 out of JFK, New York. And then we're going to take the train to Cremona, which is the birthplace of the modern violin. We visit a modern violin shop, meet a maker, see some techniques. We see some really old violins in the museum there. Compare Amati and Stradivarius violins. Then we see the history. Where does the modern violin come from? The old medieval fiddles, the rebecks, and some of the older instruments from the Middle East. Cremona is very proud of its violin history. Stradivarius, most famous violin maker ever, came from Cremona. And Cremona is just a really beautiful town. It's only an hour outside of Milan, and it's very beautiful. Recommend going. It's got a really slow, chill vibe. And the cool thing was, for me, I got to take the old family violin back to the place where the modern violin was made. So, join us. This is our aircraft parking. We're about 2.5 hours away from departure at this point. 59 minutes for departure here. Just getting the pre-flight set up in the cockpit. You can see a little rain starting in JFK. I'm going to start loading the flight plan and doing all my pre-flight checks. It's a beautiful night. I love flying over when there's a full moon out, especially when there's clouds about. It just makes it a really beautiful night. Moonlight in the cockpit. There's Venus rising. The sun's starting to come up in the east. Flying over the Alps and starting our descent into Milan. Hey, it's the Flying Fiddler. Welcome to Milan. Landed early in the morning here. We saw the sunrise over the Alps. And pink light of the morning sun on the side of the Alps as we were coming in on final. It was a super, super beautiful morning. And already got my tickets for the train and the violin museum. So we'll go check it out. Going to Cremona, there it is on the map, just south and a little east of Milan. There's the train schedule website I used. And this is what it looks like, super easy to get the train. It was pretty cheap, about $12 each way. Leaving Cremona at 12:20 and getting back around 8:44 in the evening. Plenty of time. Like I said, I do recommend seeing Cremona for longer if you can. Hey, it's the Flying Fiddler in Cremona. Just got off the train from Milan. Definitely recommend getting tickets ahead of time and knowing your train number. That's the only way I really found the platform where it was leaving, which was pretty key. Well, I got a 3-hour nap, set my alarm. I didn't want to wake up, but I went ahead and pushed through. And then just about an hour 8 minutes down from Milan to Cremona. And I'm just walking down the streets and trying to find the Violin Museum. Well, it's a beautiful little spot in the shade, and I got a little bowl at a local place here. Try to open it up here with one hand. Yeah, it's got potatoes and some spinach and some meat and some rice there at the bottom, so it looks really good. So I'm just gonna have a little quick picnic lunch here in the shade and then head to the museum. I really like learning about the history of the violin and where it comes from and its predecessors. This museum added a lot of great insight as to where it comes from. And also I recommend going to the Musical Instrument Museum in Rome as well. I was curious about some of the predecessors to the violin and what they sounded like. So I looked up some YouTube channels, so I included clips from those here. Please visit those channels if you are interested. Included obviously some ancient stringed instruments here. This is one from Egyptian. It's a replica. Before they had bows, they obviously plucked and strummed the string instruments. But it was interesting from the museum in Rome. I've included this picture. It was about the 9th century, so the 800s, when hunting bows were produced in Central Asia. And the idea of rubbing a bow on the strings rather than plucking appeared. So that's super interesting. And then it talks about how later the violin was invented in the 14 and 1500s. And this talks about how the courts in Europe, the kings and the queens in the 1500s really loved the violin when it came out, and it was very, very popular. So that's kind of what put Cremona on the map for violin making, was selling to all the kings and queens, especially in France and Spain at the time. I actually didn't realize that there was a big connection between Spain and Cremona, as here we look at reproduction of a old violin maker's shop in Cremona. But yeah, the connection between Spain and Cremona was a royal connection, and also a lot of the music instrument makers came over from Spain and settled in Cremona in the 14 and 1500s too, which I thought was interesting. And this talks about the bow and how it's changed over time. There was a Baroque bow that was kind of bowed like actual, like you'd be hunting with the bow. But then in the mid 1700s, they had the modern bow, which was invented that curved backwards. Here's a picture of the Baroque bow. You can see it's shaped more like a hunting bow. And this was a good explanation of how the older violins were slightly different. They actually, most of the ones, even the older ones, have been modernized to make the sound stronger and a little bit different, replacing some of the parts, and the angle of the neck was changed, and the length of the soundboard was expanded. So now we get into the Hall of Famous Violins. These are some of my favorite ones from the museum here. This is the oldest one that I could find, 1566, which was pretty much the same age as the one in the Musical Instrument Museum in Rome that I found. That's in the previous videos. But it's beautiful violin, and it's interesting that all the old Amati ones that I can see had painted backs. And here's 1715, the Stradivarius.
17.
This has been adopted by the town of Cremona as the instrument that really represents the best that they have, the best of the best of the violins they have. Here we see a timeline. Niccolo Amati, Andrea Amati, these were all the first names, and then the various makers had apprentices, and they passed on their knowledge to other people in Cremona. Here's a 1650 Niccolo Amati. And there's another Andrea Amati, the original maker. And again, we see painting on the back with the Amati violins. So leaving the museum now, I walked around town and just enjoyed the beautiful feel of the town, the beautiful day. It's such a nice little town with restaurants and coffee shops and other little museums and things to explore. And I happened upon a violin maker, which was great. So this is the shop, Katharina Violin Maker. They were really, really nice. They invited me in and spent some time talking with them. This was her apprentice from Germany who was over learning some skills in Cremona and going to take it back to Germany, which I thought was really cool. Kind of the old process of spreading knowledge around Europe still continues. And you can notice she's holding my family violin there. They actually looked at it and thought it was an old French violin from the 1800s. there's some dates scratched into it, and they're looking at it, trying to figure it out. There's a 1895 and a 1873 scratched into that. So thank you very much. I had a great time with that violin maker, and hope to be back and show her my other violin. I was still waiting around for my train. I had a couple hours to kill. I went to a coffee shop and got a really nice ham sandwich and a cappuccino. Then I walked around the square and saw all the cool medieval stuff. There's a medieval calendar and clock in the square. That's the old square from the Roman times, but I think from what I read, everything there you see is from the medieval times, starting in about the 1200s was what this architecture kind of represents. But I had a chance to go into the old cathedral there, and I love seeing that organ, and I'd love to come back and, like I said, spend a little bit more time here in Cremona and hear the organ being played. Alright, now it's time to go do some practicing, so I went back to the violin museum and got out my fiddle and just started practicing. But now I got some time to kill, and it's a beautiful day. I just figured I'd practice my upcoming Scottish set for the Virginia Scottish Games coming at the end of the summer here. So I got plenty of time to practice. But here it is. The Slocket Light is the first tune. Here's a train taking me back to Milan Central. Departing at 7:30, right on time. It's about an hour and 15 minutes back to Milan now. Love to go back to Cremona. I had a great time. There was a lot to process about the violin history, especially the predecessors to the modern violin. Thank you for joining me, and hope to see you again on another Flying Fiddler video.